Why is it important to read to my child? By Emily McDill. It is important to read to your child. At just a few months of age, an infant can look at pictures, listen to your voice, and point to objects on cardboard pages. You can guide your child by pointing to the pictures and then say the names of the various objects. By drawing attention to pictures and associating words with both pictures and real-world objects, your child will learn the importance of language. Children learn to love the sound of language before they even notice the existence of printed words on a page. Reading books aloud to children stimulates their imagination and expands their understanding of the world. It helps them develop language and listening skills and prepares them to understand the written word. When the rhythm and melody of language become a part of a child's life, learning to read will be as natural as learning to walk and talk. Even after children learn to read by themselves, it is still important for you to read aloud together. By reading stories that are on their interest level, but beyond their reading level, you can stretch young readers' understanding and motivate them to improve their skills. You may go through a period when your child favors one book and wants to read it night after night. It's not unusual for children to favor a particular story, and this can be boring for parents. Keep in mind, however, that a favorite story may speak to your child's interests or emotional needs. Be very patient. Continue to expose your children to a wealth of books, and eventually they will be ready for more stories. Having access to information through the printed word is an absolute necessity. Knowledge is power, and books are full of it. But reading is more important than just a practical tool. Through books, we can enrich our minds. We can also relax and enjoy some precious leisure moments. With your help, as your children begin a lifelong relationship with the printed word, they can grow into adults who read easily and frequently, whether 10 reasons why you should read to your children. The first reason is reading to your child forms a strong relationship between you and your child. As your child grows older, they'll be on the move. They'll be playing, running, and constantly exploring their environment. Snuggling up with a book lets the two of you slow down and recapture that sweet, cuddly time you enjoyed when they were a baby. Instead of being seen as a chore or task, reading will become a nurturing activity that will bring the two of you closer together. And the second reason why you should read to your child is academic excellence. One of the primary benefits of reading to toddlers and preschoolers is a higher aptitude for learning in general. Numerous studies have shown that students who are exposed to reading before preschool are more likely to do well in all aspects of education. After all, if a student struggles to put together words and sentences, how can they be expected to grasp the math, science, and social concepts he'll be presented with when they begin elementary school? The third reason why you should read to your child is basic speech skills. Throughout toddlerhood and preschool, your child is learning critical language and enunciation skills. By listening to you read a book such as One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish, your child is reinforcing the basic sounds that form language. Pretend reading is when a toddler pages through a book with squeals and jabbers of delight. It's a very important pre-literacy activity. As a preschooler, your child will likely begin sounding out words on their own. The fourth reason why you should read to your child is the basics of how to read a book. Children aren't born with an innate knowledge that text is read from left to right, or that words on a page are separate from the images on the page. Essential pre-reading skills like these are among the major benefits of early reading. The fifth reason why you should read to your child is better communication skills. When you spend time reading to toddlers, they'll be much more likely to express themselves and relate to others in a healthy way. By witnessing the interactions between the characters in the books you read, as well as the contact with you during story time, your child is gaining valuable communication skills. The sixth reason why you should read to your child is mastery of language. Early reading for toddlers has been linked to a better grasp of the fundamentals of language as they approach school age. The seventh reason why you should read to your child is more logical thinking skills. Another illustration of the importance of reading to children is their ability to grasp abstract concepts, apply logic in various scenarios, recognize cause and effect, and utilize good judgment. As your toddler or preschooler begins to relate the scenarios in books to what's happening in their own world, they'll become more excited about the stories you share with them. The eighth reason why you should read to your child is acclimation to new experiences. As your child approaches a major developmental milestone or a potentially stressful experience, sharing a relevant story is a great way to help ease the transition. For instance, if your little one is nervous about starting preschool, Reading a story dealing with this topic shows them that their anxiety is normal. The ninth reason why you should read to your child is enhanced concentration and discipline. Toddlers may initially squirm and become distracted during story time, but eventually they'll learn to stay put for the duration of the book. Along with reading comprehension comes a stronger self-discipline, longer attention span, and better in-memory attention, all of which will serve your child well when they enter school. The 10th reason why you should read to your child is to show your child that reading is fun. Early reading for toddler helps them view books as an indulgence and not as a chore. Kids who are exposed to reading are much more likely to choose books over video games, television, and other forms of entertainment as they grow older. Books have the power to benefit toddlers and preschoolers in a myriad of ways. As a parent, reading to your child is one of the most important things you can do to prepare them with a foundation for academic excellence. What is the relationship between language and reading? A baby's brain is hardwired to learn a language. That means that a baby doesn't need to be taught how to speak a language. It happens naturally. Babies learn language pretty much from the moment that they are born. It's an amazingly complex skill, but since it's natural, we are unaware of everything that it involves. Unlike learning language, though, learning to read is not natural. And since learning to read is not natural, there are several different awarenesses that a child must know before they are able to read. The first awareness is phonemic awareness. This is where learning to read starts. Phonemic awareness means that children become aware that speech is made up of individual sounds. It's a critical part of reading readiness, so it is often a focus of early learning programs. However, since writing isn't speech, phonemic awareness isn't enough to allow children to learn to read. In order to learn how to read, children must be able to recognize that the marks on a page represent the sounds of a language. Those marks, of course, are called letters. The next awareness that children need to have is alphabetic awareness. This is more than just memorizing the alphabet. Learning the alphabet is part of reading readiness, but to be able to read, children must be able to do more than simply memorize letters. They must also be able to identify which sounds in the language go with which letters. Memorizing letters and sounds is a more difficult task than memorizing the name of objects like animals. Animals are concrete things. They can be seen and they can be pictured. For example, you can point to a cat and say cat to help your child connect the word to the animal. You can point to pictures of cats or other objects to make your child connect the words to the objects. But sounds can't be pictured. So memorizing which sounds go with which letters is a more abstract process than memorizing the names of objects. The best we can do is use a picture of a cat to illustrate the sound of C. Memorizing the sounds that go with the letters of the alphabet is even more difficult when we understand that we don't have an exact correlation between letters and sounds. English has about 44 sounds, but has only 26 letters to represent those sounds. Some letters represent more than one sound, as we can see from the letter A in the words father and fat. But other letters seem unnecessary, since the sounds they represent aren't sounds that other letters represent. For example, we could just as easily spell queen, Kween, and we could spell exit, Egzit. The next awareness is sound to word awareness, which is also blending. This is as difficult as it might be to match all the sounds to the right letters and memorize them all. Learning to read requires even more. Children must also be able to link printed words to sounds. That is more complex than it sounds because a word is more than a sum of its letters. The word cat, for example, is made up of 3 sounds represented by 3 different letters, C-A-T. Children must be able to recognize that these sounds blend together to form the word cat, k-a-t, cat. Making the connections between sounds and printed words is so complex that we still don't know exactly how children do it. But when they are able to manage it, we say they have broken the code. There are different stages of learning to read. Like learning language, learning to read occurs in stages. Although not everyone agrees on exactly how those stages progress, knowing what the stages are can provide you with an idea on how children come to break the written code and learn to read. The first stage is the pre-alphabetic stage. At this stage, children recognize and basically remember words by their shapes. Words are something like pictures, and the letters provide cues to what the word is. For example, a child might see the word bell has a rounded letter at the beginning and 2 L's at the end. The shapes of those letters provide visual cues. At this stage, children can easily confuse words with similar shapes. The word bell, for example, can be confused with doll. The next phase is partial alphabetic phase. Children at this stage can memorize printed words by connecting one or more of the letters to the sounds they hear when the word is pronounced. That means they can recognize the word boundaries in print and usually the beginning and ending letter and sounds of words. For example, they might be able to recognize the word talk by the T at the beginning and the K at the end. However, they can easily confuse talk with other words that begin and end with the same sounds, like take and tack. The next phase is the full alphabetic phase. In this stage, children have memorized all the sounds represented by the letters and can read words by recognizing each letter in a word and the way that the sounds represented by those letters blend together to form words. They can tell the difference between talk, take, and tack. The last phase is the consolidated alphabetic phase. In this stage, children have become aware of multi-letter sequences in familiar words. For example, they can see the similarities in the words take, cake, make, sake, fake, and lake. Instead of looking at each letter in these sequences, children memorize the whole group of sounds as a single sound. This kind of grouping is called chunking. Chunking helps children to read words faster and more efficiently because they don't have to think about letters one at a time. Children eventually learn to see other kinds of chunks in written words that continue to make reading easier. They begin to recognize morphemes rather than single letters. For example, they can recognize the word walk and the ending ed and blend the two morphemes to get the word walked. Being able to recognize morphemes also helps children recognize whether a word is a noun, verb, or adjective. The ION at the end of a word, for example, makes the word a noun. This kind of chunking also helps children decode words with more than one syllable, like unbelievable. Once children can recognize enough words relatively quickly and easily, they are ready to move from reading individual words to reading sentences and then paragraphs. At that point, they can start to focus on comprehending what they are reading. Most children reach this stage sometime. Archives of Disease in Childhood states that reading aloud to young children, particularly in an engaging manner, promotes emerging literacy and language development and supports the relationship between child and parent. Although the life of a parent is often hectic, you should try to read with your child at least once a day at a regularly scheduled time. But don't be discouraged if you skip a day or don't always keep your schedule. Just read to your child as often as you possibly can. Taking the time to read with your child on a regular basis sends a very important message that reading is worthwhile.